Matter of fact, let me get mine set up here too also. Lawrence, one second. Take a quick commercial break so I can have my little recording set up so I can just transcribe this later for us. Righty. So how's everybody doing in California? You guys are online. I know you guys had a tsunami coming in potentially. I heard last night, and I hope you guys are all safe, but we're going to go ahead and proceed today with some exciting AI. So my name is Walter Fordham. I'm a CEO and founder of SmartQuest Technology, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been working around community actions for since let me back up. My mother started in community action aids. I had a computer software company and in Maitland, Florida, and they had a problem with LIHEAP. So I wrote this LIHEAP system and helped them put together this LIHEAP system, and then it became CSBG and so forth. That launched me into the network of community action. I went off into the military. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps after I got out, right out of high school, and then went into college and did another illustrious career of that in several companies in the tech world. Um, so I've been doing databases tech for years. My background is in statistics and mathematics. That's what I majored in. So I'm very familiar with those types of things. I'm actually a master black belt, Six Sigma. So I reached the highest level of that certification too. So that kind of helps me deal with processes with organizations and organizational processes and improvement. And AI is actually going to be one of those things that is going to impact agencies as far as process improvement, right? And the multiplier of it. But before we get into like AI in itself, we need to also demystify the aspect of AI, like what does it mean and so forth. So even I always do this a lot of times during my presentations, and we're gonna actually do something really nifty here, and I'm gonna actually go live with this. So because I really want you guys to see this. So um, if you guys don't know me, I'm actually I'm I'm one of those ones that will actually go live, but I find that you guys learn better from tactile learning sometimes for certain things, and this is one of those particular topics that we may need some tactile learning here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually demystify. We're going to actually go into an actual AI itself. So when I say AI itself, we're going to actually look into the brains of an actual AI agent itself. So I want to kind of go a little bit further into that so we can kind of demystify that. So let me just go ahead and find a way to go ahead and open this up. And we're going to go to, and how many of people, just with a share of hands, how many people have at least used Chat GPT? Can we just go and give me some thumbs up in there? Because how many people have at least just used Chat GPT? Just at least that. How many have you got a count on that for me, Lawrence, or no?
I think that was near everybody.
There, everybody. Okay, so everybody's at least everyone has actually done that. So let's just kind of go a little bit further. I'm gonna go open this up with a text feed. There we go. Now, let me do a share here. Now this takes up a lot of resources on my computer, which is why I was having to trying to close a few things before we get it. But we're gonna go ahead and demystify that. So let's start off with interesting, right? Okay, so I've written some LLMs and agentic frameworks and LLMs ourselves here, experimental here in SmartQuest. So what are you looking at right this second? Well, let me tell you what you're looking at right this second. This is the inside of AI. This is what they call the LLM, the agentic brain, the thing that they're talking about. And what do you see? Just stuff, and you see a header, some few things that you can read up here. So when you actually go and you do an actual you ask a particular question of some sort, you'll see things. So if I was to search for, let's say, like the word apple, right in here. So somewhere in this brain, we'll find the word, okay, there's the word apple, there's the word prize, there's the word Eddie, Bass, Force. So what you see inside is a bunch of contextual, what they call training material, training data, information, natural words that have been tokenized, what they call tokenized, and actually put inside of this system. And it's blended and put in a form and fashion so that the AI can actually mathematically traverse its brain and get to certain things and probabilities. So there's certain probabilities. So classroom is related to sum up something else, and it'll be connected to something else that's connected to something else. And we're looking at it in a two-dimensional space, but it's actually three-dimensional. Right? It's like a balloon. So we're looking at it through a two-dimensional space right now, but it has depth and height and more circular in its fashion. So this is the inside of an AI brain, right? So when they say the AI is going to, take over the world, you look at this stuff. So this is more of the tokenized mathematics of it, right? So this is what you see here. This is actually the math that's going on there, right? So this is what the inside of the brain look. And you kind of look at my little slider over here. I'm about up here at the top of the brain. Now I'm somewhere in the middle. And we see some stuff in words, tokenization, and training material. So this looks like a old scary black and white TV movie, right? So this is what you see. But towards the top, you can see some of the natural language words that you can kind of decipher and see inside of here. So that being said, usually I find that this kind of demystify, oh, this AI thing, AI. So I always like to do this when I get a chance at some of the presentations to demystify AI. It's really a statistical bundle, right, of words and numbers and their associations, right? And it processes that in a mathematical way to determine the next word. So for example, if I said Pete Vargas. Hey, how you doing, Pete? I'm just calling your name out because I see you there. So let's say Pete, I said, okay, Pete, every time I say A and B, I want you to say what? Say it, Pete. I know you know it.
See,
There you go. Right. So, Jillian, how you doing, Jillian? So if I was to say X and Y, what would you say?
Z.
There you go. What you guys were is Pete and Jillian. Give them a hand. They're our new AI agents, right? So anytime I ask Pete for A and B, he's always going to be able to tell me C, and Jillian's always going to be telling me if I say X and Y, she's going to say Z. Perfect. That's a very simplistic form of prediction. I didn't tell Pete it was going to be C. I didn't tell Jillian it was going to be Z. She just knew that that was probably the next letter to say. And she has a conviction on, I know it's going to be Z, but it could have been something else. It could have been X, Y, P. I was talking about something. I was talking about X, Y, a particular stock symbol. I wasn't talking about A, B, C. I was talking about this. So you get see. So what does that mean? That's the context of the word. So the context, we made the assumption that we were talking about alphabets, right? That was the context. You made that assumption that we were talking about alphabet. So Pete said, hey, A, B, well, makes sense. C, I'm sure he's talking about alphabets because he just asked me that question. I'm just going to make a prediction that it's C because I think he's talking about alphabets and not the part number in a manufacturer place that says, hey, all right, we're looking at part number AB and this should have been Q or AB1 or AB2 because now we're on the factory line and we're looking at parts. So guess what? Context meant everything in there. So what would be the hallucination if I was on the assembly line and I said, hey, Pete, this is part number A, B, and Pete just went off and said, I feel like, and he just said C. But we're talking about what's the next part for to be picked up or shipped. And it should have been A, B, E, or one, or two, or four, or dash, or explanation point. Because of the context, we didn't say, hey, P, we're talking about parts and not talking about alphabets. So this is what we call context. Okay, so I'm going to do so context. So when we're looking at all of these letters in it, let's assume we're having context. So alphabets might be here, machines may be over. It may cross this. Let's say this word that says Asians, right? It could be hallucinations. It could be nations. It could be a bunch of different things. This word right here, where I'm doing this nations, right? So depending on the context, right? It could have been that context or it could have been this context. So it depends on the context as to what that final interpretation is going to be. Okay. So this is how the brain works, or AI, and we must demystify it. We must understand it intuitively, right? Critical thinking wise, so that we can actually understand it. So what I want you guys to understand right now is, guess what? We have next token, next prediction, right? And that's in a context, but we understand, hey, we got to be in the right context because we might say the wrong thing. We may be in the wrong place and say the wrong thing. You say here in New Jersey, it means one thing, California means one thing, and Florida it means another thing, right? It's all about context. So when they say hallucination, what they're really talking about in the AI is there was not enough context in place so that it made the wrong prediction because it didn't have the right context. Everybody clear on that? Everybody see how that works? So the context, and people say, "Oh, AI hallucinates." Yeah, okay. Well, was the context given? So what they do on these newer models, we design these models to interpret context first. That's why they say, "Hey, can we turn on memories in your AI settings? We do this?" They want information. Oh, this is a doctor. He's asking about this. So now he says, what is tell me about, how many apples should you eat? We're not talking about cooking. You might be talking about nutrition. It may be talking about something. You get what I'm saying? So it's the context that it's in. So now it's going to be a little more accurate if it knows the context. Okay. See, if we learn these things, you're going to start saying, and I wrote a white paper on context bubble theory. That's actually named context bubble gateway theory, and it explains this in detail. I'll share this, guys, with you, Lawrence, to send that to you towards the end, and I'll just kind of copy it into our chat or send it to an email. So, but what I'm breaking down to you now is how that works. And the reason we need to know how this works is because that's going to lead to our final when we start talking about how do we do and use these tools for other things. And then our final series, which is going to be part 3, we're going to actually be doing a little more edge case, like actual in the workplace type of things with those agentic force, tools. So we're going to get really excited. I told Lawrence I was going to do a little more. We're going to do a little bit of deviation as far as what I'm talking about other than the PowerPoint itself, because I did a couple presentations and I found that these presentations where we actually give, they've come and say, "Hey, Walter, now I love that training, because I really kind of understand it now because I didn't quite understand it, but the way you were talking about it sounds." So what I'm doing is I'm going to re-explain to you guys how I've seen novices and individuals of all different skills actually learn to master AI and look at it in a different way. So when you're in Chat GPT or any type of AI agent, there are only several big brains out there. They got, Meta has one called Llama, and then you got Microsoft. They got one that's they have their own model, but generally they use OpenAI. And then you have OpenAI itself, and then you got Google, Gemini. So there are a couple of big brains. Then you got a couple of Chinese models out there. Um, yeah, there's a new one out called and we'll kind of pull that up and play with it too, just a little bit. There's a couple other new free models that you guys can look at, and we'll kind of play along with those just to kind of get your eyes used to that. And that's going to be on our next series. We're going to actually we're going to build some things, right, with Agentic. I'm going to show you, we're going to actually build some actual things, on the webinar. So next webinar, after we have this context and we've gone through here, I want to actually kind of have you a little, you can, if you want to have your computer sitting to the side and you actually do it, we're going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to send you a couple of instructions of where we're going to be using some tools to actually warm up for the next one. So let me kind of get back to where we were to make sure that we have our orientation on AI, and that was context. So context means everything. The reason they say, oh, you have, LLM, a prompt engineer expert say, hey, you need to have a role. What is a role? Right? The role is what? Another context. What is the purpose? The purpose is the context. What is the goals? That's the goal. The goal is I need to get to this point B. So the answer needs to fit inside of the goal. The final answer needs to fit in the goal. What's the role? Okay, I need to understand how I need to be approaching this. Am I a cook? Am I a scientist? Or am I a doctor? What am I when I go into this conversation? Because I have trillions of data, trillions and trillions and trillions of of data just trained in this, and this is what I see in my brain. I need to know where you want me to start. Do I start here and start getting your answer? Do I start over here and start getting your answer? Where do you want me to start at, right? And where should we end up as far as me scoring how probable your goal is, which you say, hey, tell me how to cook very good cookies, right? What does good mean? So at least we in the context of good, right? And we have the context of bad. So the LLM may sometimes, to get its orientation, it might take an opposite to see, right? So it might use a set of thinking where it says, okay, good is this, bad is that. What is the criteria? How many tokens have we got voting for good versus bad? Okay, they want good cookies. So let me use this set of words in my probabilities, right? So it'll use a certain set of words because that's going to be closer to that final goal that it has to fit inside. So everything is a bubble, right? Where it starts, right? How it gets to that journey. Like you say, hey, make sure you consider this. And okay, I'm writing a grant. Okay, grant is big. I'm writing it for seniors. Okay, we got a senior bubble. Let's see. I can take all this data, I can cut out all of this, and I can just focus on this because we're talking about seniors. I need to write a grant. And then I got to figure out what a grant. Okay, what type of grant? Oh, instead of all of this, I need a grant for, I'm just gonna say CSBG. Okay, well, here's CSBG right here. We don't need all of this. We just need the top. So guess what? It's gonna slice that out. So what's the rules? Oh, it can't be over this amount of money. It can't be this, this, this. So it can vote and vote now as it's doing its predictions. It can vote and see if it meets each of those criteria. And if not, the vote will be a no vote and it'll move on to the next the next guess, the next best guess. Okay. But guess what it'll do in the end? It'll always finish almost 90, unless you have special rules. It's going to be almost finished, unless the special rule is stop, right? Okay, so now you gave it a spot. If you don't know this in particular, stop and ask me a question. Okay, so now it can get to stop, or it can get to finish, but you'd have to ask it to stop because it's going to always finish. That's what I need you to understand, that it will always, and I keep looking over because my camera's over here. I gotta start looking at, sorry, guys. Looking at you guys' ear when I'm talking. So it will always finish. That's one thing I want you guys to understand. It's always going to finish the story, the question. So it's always, and guess what? Here's the other side. It's always going to sound correct. Why? Because it's been trained on grammar to perfection, because it is a natural language understander. It understands language, context, how language should be arranged. So when you listen to the output, you say, man, that sounds fantastic. It has to be right. Pete said C. The way he said ABC, it must be right because he said it so fluently, right? A, B's Charlie, C is in Charlie. He made it sound so nice that happened. That had to be the answer, but it wasn't. It was A, B, part number dash 101. You got me? Because the context was wrong. So we never assume that AI is right based on the way that it sounds. There's the point I want to get to. You have to get that out of your head when you're dealing with output. You have to learn to critique it, and you cannot use the sound and how the language is articulated or the grammar to determine in your head as to whether the information is correct or not. Okay? How are we at? Are we good now so far? Any questions on the aspect of this LLM? Any questions? Let me pause this for any questions on LLM from a technical, like from what you guys see, your understanding of it. Anybody want to kind of feedback of what they, just a little feedback on someone, if they raise their hand, I'll just have them just kind of just unmute and just kind of give any feedback on this. I want to kind of get ready for this. Any feedback on what you've seen? You don't have to be scared, guys. We just want to have an open conversation.
I guess I can go. I've noticed in using it that the context is important. So kind of seeing the big picture and seeing where it's all coming from, it makes sense why the context is so important because it is pulling from so much. But yeah, when I narrow it down or say, like appeal to a certain population of the people or use these specific documents, I feel like the answers are always a lot better the more concise the instructions are.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's what I want you guys to to see and just kind of intuitively kind of picture that. And this is one of the kind of things we call context bubble gateway theory. And I'm just going to step through this because, and this kind of explains, address AI uncertainty. This is what this is about, simplifying complex concepts and preventing hallucinations. And so I have a blueprint for you guys that you can guys take and answer those questions that we're going to provide to you also at the end of this. So you can have this, this PowerPoint so you'll know be. And it basically kind of says, the bubble metaphor. Imagine you four soap bubbles floating together where they overlap. You see bright colors. These are the basic on the things they call temperature, like how much should I lean to this context versus that context. There's certain, temperatures and so forth and things. So there's settings that are behind the scenes. So what'll happen is me as a programmer, I can set things like they call p values, t values. I can set those settings in the back that tells it how randomized they can be. In other words, when you ask a question, the AI will grab the first 10 questions and it might take the first three and then decide from the first three, right? Or if I tighten it down with the p-value, it may take the first 5 or 10 by loosening it up because I want it to be a little more creative before it selects its next pathway to the answer. So the unfortunate part is sometimes in things like Chat GPT and so forth, they don't allow you to change those settings or set those settings. So they have a mid temperature that they may choose. It might be a 7. It could be I like to do things closer towards a 6 that gives a little less, especially when you get to things like grants and numbers and spreadsheets, right? Spreadsheet, we wouldn't want it hallucinating for numbers, right? We'd want it closer to, like a 5 or something. You get down to like a 1, what would happen on a 1? It would give you the exact same answer if 10 people asked it, right? The other way, as you increase, right, it might not give, it'll be different answers and more and more and more and more, more unique that answer becomes as those temperatures actually increase in there. Okay, let's be that. So as it increases, the answer, the variability of that answer starts to increase. And so if you're writing a fiction novel, you'd want to say, hey, write me a fiction novel on XYZ. And guess what? It'll be a lot more creative in that novel as far as going different, because guess what? Source of truth doesn't really matter. Imagination and differences actually matter more. So in those cases, you won't see, you won't see as much randomization. Okay, it depends on how you set it up. So the more scientific, in general, the more scientific, the less random, the less creative I want. I don't want it roaming off into other areas or testing other contexts versus right where I'm actually talking about. So you'll see in things like, you heard me say persona, the voice or gender that you assign, role, goal, knowledge. Now that I've kind of demonstrated and showed you the inside of the brain, it's drawing bubbles in each of those areas. And the intersections of those bubbles, because remember it's 3-dimensional, multi-dimensional, is where it'll pick its answer from. Okay. And once you start learning that in your head, this is why it's not just say, oh, give me a persona. Well, we want to know persona because it kind of creates less variability as far as what it's looking at in the universe. That makes sense? Cool. That makes sense to everyone. Great. That is good. All right. So let's go down a little bit further here. And I don't want to go too much time in this. I want to save us a lot of time for some other interesting things at the end. All right. So these are our case studies that we have in here. And these are some hand-on exercises that we have that are listed inside of here. So you'll be able to take this and use this, inside of your organization as a reference information. So let's go to something else. And if I go in here, and we're going to actually switch over to using our there we we go. Let's switch slides. There we go. And I don't have it on slide play because I'm going to flip back and forth to something else for you guys on the browser, and you guys can preview over here. So you guys, as your eyes are sitting here on the West Coast, you can kind of preview where I'm going to go to next. It's kind of cheating, but you guys will have the slides anyway if you're in that. So we talk about revolutionizing your organization. Now I'm going to have the slide and go through it, but I really want you guys to think about, okay, Walter's saying all this nice stuff, right? How are we going to get busy in our organization, right? How are we going to get busy? How are we going to be 4X, right? It's important that you guys become 4X in your organization. When I say 4X, you can't operate the way yes, you can't keep looking through all of your emails. You can't keep spending hours on things, 1 hour when you should be spending 15 minutes. You can't spend time writing every letter, spending an hour when you should be doing that in 15 minutes. You shouldn't spend, 10 hours when you should be spending 2.5. You should be at least 2Xing, 4Xing as many things or tasks that you can do. And what's the question that you need to understand as far as efficiency, innovation, and growth within your organization? The question that you're going to ask is how the particular thing, let's say I'm going to solve, we have a batch of surveys, right, that we've just taken from some clients or some customers, right? Do I want to read through all of the surveys, right, from all of the customers, or could I take that PDF and upload it to a secure, AI prompt? Not, so we're gonna make sure we'll talk about security. I think Sean mentioned that in our last presentation on security, but let's not get too far into that. But would I want to upload it into an AI agent and say, hey, can you grab me some insights out of that document? Okay. Yes, it's going to say yes, and it's going to read those and parse those document, give you the insights. Is there any trends I should be looking for in this stack of documents? Right. So you have to learn as an organization how to step through the different components in how to step through the different components and how to adapt, how your organization is going to adapt for, shifting customer expectations, data-driven insights, and so forth. How are you going to do that? And I'm trying to give you the clear-cut things that you now see. These are some Lean Six Sigma principles because you're going to find out you want to solve something. So you're going to have to define, right, what you want to solve as an organization. So you need to brainstorm. You're going to have to sit down as a team and say, okay, we want to AI some things, right? Okay, what you want to AI? What? Oh, well, we spend a lot of time, looking through these applications to see if they all have, correct address, right? Let's just throw something out like that. All right, so that's the problem. It takes us, 2 hours or whatever. Matter of fact, let me do something easy. These, let's say it's surveys. I like surveys. So we have all these surveys that we've actually done, and it takes us, we have to transcribe what they have in those surveys, and I'm going to show you a sample of that type of process later. We have a bunch of surveys, and they've handwritten all of this stuff at the bottom. We got to go through and decipher it. And that's taken us, 3 weeks because we have 1,000 surveys, right? And someone has to sit there and transcribe because we want to put it all in our spreadsheet, right? So we defined something. And what did I do? I measured it right by saying, hey, it takes X amount of time. Okay, so that's how we measured it, that time frame. Then we want to analyze why is it taking so long for those surveys? Well, we know why, because we got to read them and decipher them. And it's handwritten, it's not typed. We can't transcribe, we can't copy and paste it, right? So that's going to be your root cause. So, and I'm not trying to teach you Six Sigma right now. We just want to have a way of defining what things you want to do in your organization. And you must do these things. So these principles must be done because otherwise you're inefficiently just saying, hey guys, we just want to do some AI and everybody's a cowboy. It's wild, wild west, everybody's splashing, doing all types of things, right? You must have a clear message and a clear set of things. So just pick the top, let's say 3 things that you want to automate or see if you can tackle it with AI. Just pick a low-hanging fruit, define it, measure it, see how long it's taking. And then the idea is, can we improve it? Can the output of us just transcribing data to a conclusion help us out? Now, if the answer is yes, or you end up improving, then you want to constantly be able to put some controls in place so we can keep having that process. That means every time you get the surveys, what are we going to do? We're going to take them, stack them up, put them in a PDF. We're going to upload them to the AI constantly. So that's going to be our control so that we can sustain that same process that we put in a test fashion. So this is how the framework is going to actually be working. You're going to define something, measure it, see how it's taking too long, analyze why it's taking too long, see how we can improve it, what aspects of it's going to improve it, and then you want to, if that's true, we want to consistently keep that improvement intact, right? We want to keep that intact at all points in time. So this is how we're, as an organization, going to pick some things out. So let's just brainstorm for a second because we want to make this real. What are some things that you guys can think that you may want to, you can drop them in the chat if you want to, that you think would be, things to actually automate in AI? Just give me just brainstorm some things that you see that cause a lot of issues. All right, I'm waiting in the chat. Let's go. See, let us stream in here. Looks kind of quiet here. All I hear is crickets. There we go. Customer satisfaction. Great. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for leading the way, Lawrence. Okay, let's go, my studious people. Think, because this is the bottleneck. When people say, hey, we want to do it. See, just like I'm asking this question, see how long it's taking us? This is the bottleneck. Duplicate counts. Now we're starting to roll. Okay, some duplicate counts on some particular thing, right? Respond to emails to ask about common questions. Track progress of utility assistance application. What else we got in there? So you see how we're starting. So public records. All right. So in that public records, Pete, what were you referring to in general? Just type of next on none of these. Public records in general, like what? Review of.
Basically, just maybe helping individuals out who are trying to get like birth certs or death certs.
How to do what? One more time, Tibi.
Sorry, maybe like birth certs or death certs.
Okay. So right. Okay, that's great. That's one. Just wanted to want to swing back around. Anything else, guys? How about just simple things like you know, case notes. We know how terrible case notes are, right? Right? Anyone does case management, sometimes when they get the case notes that they just have notebooks of everything in there that it shouldn't have in there, right? Scrubbing case notes. So what could we do in a learning scenario, right? We could take case notes, right? Or meeting notes, or in this case, take them during a session, grab a block of case notes, paste it into the AI and say, hey, create me a framework of proper case notes, or take this particular case note and give us some insights on a proper written case note. It's going to be able to do it. I know it because I've already tested it, that it's able to contrive and produce through training elements that a very good case note, right? And since you don't have to work that hard, you can say, can you create me a manual for CSBG case managers on how to produce case notes? You see how I just gave you a quick way to do that. So you could sit back, since most of you guys said you take Chat GPT right now, paste some case notes in there. Just say, revise these case notes into a form that's CSBG compliant and strategic for this particular family. Keyword strategic, because you want case notes to be strategic. You don't want them just being there, hey, they live on the street, here, or they go this way, and they, the light bill hasn't been paid because mom didn't come over and do it. We don't need all those ulterior information. We just need to know, hey, they're in a situation where they're in a interruption of service scenario. What's the rationales behind it? It'd be loss of income or lack of income or sudden loss of income. You want particular things extracted from the case note itself. What's the context? What's the time frame of this interruption and things like that? Well, by using it as a training, and this is one of the gifts I want to have during this presentation, is to teach you to ask AI to teach your organization forget about it, asking it to do something. Let's forget about that for now. I want you to ask it to teach you something. So at our next meeting, I want you to say what you had it teach you based on your organization. How to run a LIHEAP program, right? I'm gonna go and we're gonna do a couple of them. How to run a successful CSBG program. You know, how do we do a, what things should we collect on our CSBG application? I'm having a survey meeting. I'm having a board meeting next week on strategic planning, right? What questions should I ask our board members, right? And I want you to tell it to teach you these things. See, this is the power that we use in our organization that I'm using immensely, is to taking AI and forget about asking it to do things. We know it can do things too also. But what I see people not using, and some of my students not using, is using it the inverse as a educational tool. You must do this. When I'm saying you must do it, even if you ask it to teach you how to use AI, right? Just say, how do we use AI in general, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take something like a Claude here. Let's do this. Let me talk, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this at the same time because I want us to actually visualize this. Let's just say, let's go about Gemini. All right, so let's go ahead and do a share here. All right, Gemini, where you at? You're hiding. Oh, there we go. Too much. Okay, so now I'm inside of Gemini, right? So we're sitting here inside of Gemini. Let me see if I can sign. I need to sign in first too. Let's go here. Let's go ahead and sign in. Okay, good. No, we don't need that right now. No, thanks. All right. So let's just start with a couple questions. We said customer satisfaction. Okay. Okay, create me a survey for customer satisfaction. And this is just asking us to do something. Right? So, and I'm just gonna hit go, and it's gonna do its thing. Absolutely, here's a customer satisfaction survey, and we got a survey, right? So, how much work did we spend on doing this? A few seconds, right? So these are the kind of things we say, poor customer support, friendliness, politeness, da 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 da. So now we have now a survey that's, in this case, 8 questions. Let's just say make it 4 questions. Make it 4 relevant questions. Now, I didn't give it, what didn't I do? I didn't give it any what? Any what? Next word. It reminds with A, B. And what's the C? P's gonna say it.
You
I
didn't give
didn't
it a
give,
purpose or direction.
no, it begins with a C. It didn't give it any
Command.
command context. You almost there. Pete's hallucinating. There we go. All right. Command with context, right? Because I wasn't clear, right? So now we have Pete hallucinating. Next, we're going to have Jillian, right? Jillian's going to, right? So, Jillian, we are now on the what? What platform are we on right now?
Gemini.
A, X, Y.
Oh, XYZ.
What's the Z? We're using what for our meeting right now?
Oh, Zoom.
Boom, there we go. All right. So there we go. Thank you. Give you a round of applause for my 2 AI agents right here, Julian and Pete. Right. So you understand and I'm just kind of teasing along so you guys get to understand context, right? Because so she was confused at first, like, what is Walter talking about, right? He's saying Z, but I have no freaking idea what this guy is talking about, right? These Florida guys, can you be clear on your question? Right. These are the things that I'm saying. So she didn't hallucinate. She wasn't confused. I didn't give the context. Perfect example, side example, as we kind of go through it. So now let's say, and we asked that question, we said switch it to 4, so it gave 4, right? You know, what could we improve? What could we do this? Now, what could I have done if I could have added context and say this is for, okay, this is for a board meeting. And make it, 10 questions about what is the next strategic plan direction. I'm just gonna say direction, just something like that, right? Once again, I want you guys to understand what I didn't do, right? And I just said, okay, look at our current strategic plan. What's the greatest strengths? What significant margin trends over there? Where do you see us going? Da 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 da. So it's asking these questions, right? So what should consider your long-term vision? So it's giving us these things, right? So blah 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 blah, right? So it gave us some things. But what I didn't say is, hey, it could be 2 years long. It could be concentrate. Let's say let's say concentrate on housing. So now we're talking about housing. Review our housing initiatives, where we're most successful. What emerging housing market trends do we have? Da da da. Now I could say make it ABC, make it be, multiple choice. I could have done any of that thing, and I could have been off to the meeting, right? Hey, I need you guys. I need you to go and put together a meeting for us. And the reason I keep looking at it, because Linda Timbers, I need you to put together this meeting for us. And what are you going to do? You're going to go in here, Linda, and type what they ask you, and then you're going to just look at it, review it, dump as much brain dump as you can as context. So the key thing is context, critical to quality, CTQ. That's the critical to quality, because you want the output to means to have conditions. I don't want it to be sloppy. I want it to be 10 questions. I don't want it to have, fill in the blanks. I want it to be, that's the critical to quality. And you notice I didn't put that as a context, but that is constraints. You'll hear people call it constraints or context, critical to quality conforming that you'll need to put in it. So we're putting together some things, but now I'm gonna say, let's see, I was asked to run a a strategy session for my team on how to maybe serve our LAHI clients. I'm gonna use better, right? But I want you to teach me how to do this. So I can do one for CSBG. Oops. All right. So I'll do that. So now let's talk about the teaching. Now let's look at what we're doing now. So now we're going to say, teach me, right? Okay, this is this is a fantastic request. Learn to facilitate strategic strategy session is an invaluable skill that's highly transferable. I'll walk you through the structured approach. Core ideas to move from understanding to the current state of envisioning a better true feature. How to run. It's going to tell you how to run. This is where the foundation of the success is laid. You need to define clear objectives. What is the specific problem? For your LIHEAP session, ask, how can we enhance the client experience and efficiency of service delivery for our LIHEAP program? Or identify 3 to 5 actionable strategies to better meet the needs of our LIHEAP clients. These are questions that you can do. For CSBG, how can we optimize the CSBG? So this is the things that you'll be doing. Okay, you need to define clear objectives. It's giving you some examples. What are the desired outcomes? Identify key participants. Who has direct experience with the LIHEAP clients, right? You're going to be asking the frontline staff. Who has So it's taught you how to you've learned as you read through this, through phase 2, phase 3. This is a quick, you can go to school like I did for strategic planning at places like Harvard and do X month, or you could just come in here and in 45, another 10 minutes, it's got it all wrapped up in here and learn everything you need to learn on how to run that session. This, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated, most powerful features of AI is teaching, using it to teach you how to do certain things. I don't know how to use Excel, or I don't know how to do sums and say, okay, I don't know how to do sums in Excel. Okay, teach me. Real simple, right? And I want this to be repetitive so you guys understand. Because what I want you to understand is flip the lights on. So for example, you have a lost list of numbers in column A starting at cell XY. You can export these shells, and actually you can export the sheets here. Quickest way to auto sum is your best friend, or quickly summing is to, it tells you how to do. Select the cell directly below the column, that you want in this example. Go to the home button, click on this, click on that, click on that. It's going to sum it. Voila, the sum in 80 will appear. And it gave you the Excel to actually download, right, to test it. So now guess what? I know how to sum cells in Excel. How quick, listen guys, look how powerful it is. Look how quick you can learn, right? You can learn exceptionally fast. So what I want organizations, and I've been stressing organizations to do, is to, and we'll talk about later, uploading your knowledge-based questions that you want your staff to learn, and then you sit them down there and you onboard them on those documents on how to teach them how to, you have your SOPs, you upload it and say, okay, it's uploaded. Now walk me through the lesson plans or the stages of this SOP on how I need to service our clients. Okay, you need to take the application first. You need to do this because it's going to be reading from your SOP. So, standard operating procedure. I'm sorry, sometimes I'll get off and just start using these things because I use them so much, internally. But standard operating procedure, this is a procedures manual. We're going to generally define it in industries what they call SOPs or standard operating procedures. So you'll have these SOPs. You upload the SOP into the AI prompt. You ask it to create you a walkthrough, right, through the plan. It's that simple. Okay. So if I had let's see here, my trash, let's see, SOP. Let me see if I have an SOP that I can use. Okay, here's an SOP that I use. Okay. There's an SOP for a 5K, how to run a 5K, right? Okay. Create me a, let's see, no, I'm saying I'm new. Let's do it. I'm new at the organization. New at the organization. It's going to say, oops. And I was asked to run the next 5K. Not run. Now, context, run or run, right? Run or operate. See, there you go, the context. It might give me some, I'm going to say operate and be in charge. Oops, of the next 5K, right? 5K, and then now that's the context. I'm new at the organization, context. I was asked to do something, context. It means I got to do instructions to be in charge. Okay, that's the leadership title, and that's the goal, is to be in charge of the next 5K, right? That's our goal. So now, what I want to ask you, teach me how to do this. Teach. I'm just gonna be something. Teach me. Oops. Oh shoot. My keywords. How to do this. And that's what I'm saying. In short steps. Let me say in short steps, because we don't want to see a book out here. Because we're right, in short steps. Okay, so I'll take that, and now we're going to do that, right? And this is going to teach, okay, welcome to the team. This is the 5K, based on 5K provided a leads SOP. Now they're in the SOP situation. Here's a concise step-by-step guide to help you operate and be in charge of the next 5K. Your next five-step guide to operating the GCA annual walkthrough. Understand your role. You are the event lead, and your backup is Carlos. Your main purpose to ensure flawless planning, because the backup's on the SOP. So familiarize yourself with the core team. These are all the people on the team, right? Follow the standard work playbook that's on the SOP. Go through the standard workbook. Pay close attention to it. Da 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 da. You see how you can use that as a onboarding technique for your new staff? All you have to provide is what we call the knowledge base, local knowledge base, which basically is a context of a particular procedure that you have in your organization. Now you can use that SOP to drive education, to drive next steps, to bounce off certain things like strategies that and so forth based off just the SOP itself. Do you guys see the power in that? Can I get some yes? Can I get some thumbs up in the can I get some thumbs up? Let me look for some thumbs up. Did I get any likes? Any likes? Did I get any likes in there? All right, did I get any likes? There we go. There's a thumbs up. I got one. Linda
They're
gave me a
rolling
thumbs
through. They're rolling through.
There you go. All right. There we go. I love feedback. Okay. And I hope you guys are getting something out of this. I like to talk practical. PowerPoints are good, but it kind of, I notice it floats the brain a little bit. There you go. Great. Thanks for the thumbs up. It kind of floats the brain a little bit. So I want to make sure we kind of talk practical, because a lot of these organizations leave my presentations and they just don't know what to do next. Right. So one of the things I wanted to give to you guys, other than the PowerPoint itself, was to connect your brain to practicality during this session. Like, this is practical. Take an SOP, upload it. I just logged into Gemini. Ask it some questions, because you have to get your education from on AI in real world. So one of the things I want you guys to do is to please go home, back to your organization, and upload a few things. They're all free. These are free, Gemini. Since we did in Gemini, you guys can Gemini, if you use ChatGPT, go ahead and use it. Just do a couple of these things that I'm saying. Take your SOP operation manual. You don't have it right there. It's all in paper on the shelf back there. Scan it in, drop it, and say, hey, rewrite the SOP. Can you give me, yeah, can you me a short and quick version of this SOP for 5K. Now, notice I said for 5K, because suppose I uploaded 3 or 4 in here, right? See, my brain is in tune with, I'm constantly having to do context for the AI. And the more you use it, the more you understand that, oh, context is everything. And it'll go off and start giving me, things about everything else. So now, guess what? It gave me a shortened version. Plan the event, confirm the date and revenue, secure permits, order supplies, marking and registration 30 days before the event, team tasks, execute the event, safety first, supplies and setup, monitor participants, wrap up, collect store, payments, debrief, hold a team debrief, document and retain all permits, contracts, orders, and so on. Boom. That's a quick 1-pager on how to run that SOP. And I think maybe 3 or 4 or 5 pages long. See, you could have just scanned that in and just done a quick revision instead of all these SOPs that are all over the place that are unusable, and done it like that, right? So just like that quick, you can re-educate yourself, refresh your manuals, get them refreshed, right? The SOPs, do things like that so you can get them refreshed and so forth. And it's going to make a initial impact that you're going to be able to feel and see at your organization, right? So these are some things that you can do right now. You don't have to wait to the next AI series. And I kind of walk through some frameworks that we actually use, and we're going to do some voice, actual live, like some real cool kind of things in our next, final presentation that we're gonna do. And Lawrence, what's our timing on here? Because I'm back on it. What's our time for today?
We've got 90 minutes today, so we got another, 20, 25 minutes, time for questions, etc.
All right, so we got 25 minutes, correct? Yes.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay, just want to make sure I don't even go across. Okay. So everyone kind of give me, now I'm going to open just a few. This is not the end questions, just from what I've done right now. Does everybody kind of see why I'm kind of emphasizing these actual usage models as far as how to actually do a couple things that are useful right now? Now, everyone kind of see that? So what are we going to do? And we're going to rehash, control your learning today. How are we going to control that? As Walter said, hey, we saw the AI and we kind of saw how it thinks, right? We did see that. And he also talked about, hey, let's identify 3 or 4 or 5 things, let's say 3 things in our organization that we think we can apply AI to. It may not be things that we do, it may be things that we use to educate. It could be either 2 of those things. Okay, I just want you to do those 2 things. And I want you to do that because when we get to our next final session, you're going to be more in tune, right, to the things that I'm going to be showing in the final, because we're going to be using tools, but I want you to kind of understand that productivity, not just look at it and say, oh, wow, that's great. I like the way that thing is answering the phone. Oh, wow, I like the way it's doing that. I don't want you to, oh, wow, you want to say, I remember we were doing, and that's another great idea. Oh, I see how you applied that all the way. Oh, here's these other fantastic things like agentic teams that you can do. And I'm going to show you guys how agentic workforce is actually coming into place in the organization where they're actually not replacing people, they're replacing tasks. They're the equal sign on your calculator. You get what I'm saying? So when I get a math problem, I don't just take my calculator and lay it on the math sheet and say, okay, go, right? I don't do that, right? I have to procure the information off of the sheet of paper. I have to punch the numbers in that I wanted to multiply or divide. And then the amazing thing happens is when I do what? When I hit the equal sign, right? That's the amazing part of the calculator. But it by itself is just sitting there, right? It's the tool, it's the equal sign. So AI is the multiplier of the output. You get what I'm saying? It's the multiplier of the output. Yes, we could go to the library and read this stuff, right? And then come back and write it out and then sit down all night and come up with a way to, put it in the manual, then run our Grammarly, which is now AI, run our Grammarly, spell check it and do all of that. We could do it, right? We could do it. But why do it when we could just hit the equal sign, which is in this case, we just type in something and hit the little arrow sign, the submit button. The submit is the equal sign. That's what it is. AI, you get input just like you do a calculator. And then you just hit the equal, the output. You draw the context, you put in the data, the figures, the things that you want to answer. You hit the submit button, which is your equal sign, and out what it will do is it will emit that information based on all of its the information that's drawn upon to give you the best possible answer that it has based on the contexts that you've developed to give you an answer. And usually that's fairly good. Right now, AI is testing at a level of about 80% PhD on some things, 80, sometimes 87%. They're getting really high. They're approaching that 100% level of beyond PhD, beyond, humans sometimes, our intellectual ability, which is, great. So once it covers at least everything that we're doing on the conscious level, then it'll be moving into other things like genomes and nuclear, ideas and quantum physics and quantum things that we as humans can't necessarily wrap our heads around universal, but we can allow the AI to go out and do those types of things and maths and discoveries that are kind of beyond our normal human context because we just haven't thought about it. And we don't have the mental energy to go out and do all these other non written ideas. So for example, let's say programming. The world of programming is over, right? We know programming as the normal programmer, and I've been a programmer for years. Normal programming is gone in the way that it normally was. So OpenAI, they program only 50%, 15% of their work is done by humans. Microsoft said they're down to 45% of their programming is now AI. Google hasn't announced their number, but we can pretty much use those to generally say that even the greatest software companies are now themselves with the greatest programmers only sitting there coding maybe 65, 70%. OpenAI says well, let me go in reverse. 15%, 25, 30% of their coding is actually done by the software engineer. But what they're not saying is the planning of the output, the critical to quality, the goals, the personas, this is the new skill set, right? I can just let the AI just go loose. It'll do all kinds of crazy. And I know because I'm doing it all the time. I'm 24/7 watching all of these things that it's messing up on. And it's constantly, I mean, we basically have a battle. I generally have these battles with the AI on whose answer is the best, right? You know, and matter of fact, I'll go ahead and play. That's a good one. That's a good idea. Let me go in my oldest because I was laughing with my chat. Let me go ahead and grab you a couple one of these, and then this will be a little fun thing in here. Where's my chat here? So we have these little, battles. I'll have a battle with the AI on things like this. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, here's a good one. All right. So I was in there. I was working on some other projects that were doing some financial tools, and I'll share this. Oh, wrong share. Share. Right. So here's my code and suggestion for you to compare. Excellent. Let me compare your implementation with my recommendation. Your code is significantly more advanced and production ready. Here's my comparison. Comparison now, schema analysis. We're doing some things on there for the schema for clean separation. This is some, don't worry about that. The thing you guys need to focus on, winner, yours. Ooh, better organization and maintainability. Rolling statistic bars. My approach, basic materialized view without scheduling. Winner, yours. Oh, production ready with optimization. Oh man, I won again. Your approach identical, right? So who's winning this race right now? Right now, I'm winning, right? So we'll do these things, and I'll battle along with it with things that I'm excel at, right? That I excel at, and I actually test it. You see, it'll sound right, but I said, let me match this with my actual expertise and see if it really is as good as it says it is. Like certain things. So now, just from me doing things like this, I've learned things like let me see. Here's the final verdict. This will be going through some things. What does it say? Your implementation entirely final verdict. Your implementation is production ready, well organized, and handles all edge cases. My recommendation is more conceptual, while yours is test code and ready to deploy. So we were talking about some things. So I won that race, right? So I won that. So that it's kind of things that you look. Key advantage of implementation. Adopt your recommendation to adopt your approach. Your implementation is superior in every aspect. The only additions I suggest is adding indexes. Right. So that's the only one thing. My point being is, do not assume just because it sounds good that it's better than you, right? It's not, because guess what? It doesn't have experience. It's got what's been programmed in that big database thing that I showed you, but it does not have the experience. So never give up your right to your experience. Never submit your right. What you want to do is bring your experience to the AI and challenge it, because by challenging it, you get better answers, right? So if I was to go back over here to this, let's just play devil's advocate. Let's go back over here to the Gemini. I'm watching my time. And I'm gonna say, I think this is wrong. I'm gonna say, I think, this is wrong. I'm just gonna stay like that. Why do I think it's wrong? It doesn't help a music. It doesn't help any. Okay, I'm just saying help And it may do help a new staff member, Yeah, I'm gonna say that. That's what I'm gonna say. And what is it gonna do? So always gonna give us an answer. You're absolutely right. Oh, so now I'm right. Okay. First again is, am I right? The quick guide is assumed a level of existing knowledge about the SOP structure, and that truly new staff members wouldn't have. It essentially just summarized the sections, which isn't helpful for someone just stepping in. A new staff member, what? Needs to know their primary role. What are the first few critical things they need to do right now? What are the key people they need to interact with immediately? Where do they go for the detailed instructions for each task? Let me redo this. Focus on actionable steps for completely new person drawing directly from the SOP. Welcome. This is your first da 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 da. Welcome to the da da da. It's going to outline it out here. So now it does that, right? Right. I can come back here and say, you're still wrong. Let me just try this. No, you are still wrong. This is now it's probably going to hate me after a while, but this is, oh, oops, I forgot it. Let me stop it. Stop. You're still wrong. It probably interpreted what I was saying. See, it already says you're absolutely right. My previous sentence was still too much like summary. So it already, now guess what? It knew what I was going to say. It knew, okay, so you already knew that you were wrong, right? So it's already apologizing before I even got, I just said, you are still, I could have said, no, you are still right. I could have said, no, I meant you are still right, are so right. Right. So now it's confused. I'm going all over the place. Now it's like, oh shoot, now wait, I'm right or wrong? Ah, my searing policy seems to be completely understood. You're still wrong as continued dissatisfaction. My intention interpretive algorithm clearly went off the rails here. I deeply regret the confusion and frustration that must have caused. Thank you for clarifying. So now it's claiming. I'm generally relieved to hear that the last version of the ultra quick start guide finally hit the mark. It's just truly helpful feedback to know what clicked. Right now, I'm not going to aggravate it, but like I said, no, you're wrong. We might as well tease it, right? It's going to shut down my computer. Now we've actually watched him disconnect Walter from the Zoom. No, no, you're wrong. I just gotta have to do it. But what I want you to see is, guess what? It's gonna always, now look at it. It seems there's still, now we've kind of put it in a box. It seems to be there's still a misunderstanding in our communication. I apologize for that. Could you please clarify what specifically is wrong to help me understand the correct response? Please tell me what was wrong with my last response. What were you expecting or hoping for instead? Once I understand specific issue, I can correct it and provide accurate information for your need. Thank you for your patience as we work together through this. There you go. Okay, guys. I just wanted you guys to kind of see how that played out and how we were able to use that in a way. And I'm going to show you how it bends back and forth, right? So sometimes you have to challenge it, right? Remember I said, hey, it's a new member. So don't give up your place in the AI conversation, because you're doing yourself a disservice. You bring your experience and what you know to the input box. You bring all of that here to this box. Everything you know, everything you want to know, everything you think should be there, shouldn't be there, critical to quality items. You take all of that and you bring it to that box. It's going to sound great. And it might be right in most ways. But you can't give up your experience. So this is one of the other big things that I want you guys to understand in these sessions, as you kind of go back through and you learn about AI, is that you can't give up your place as a human in this AI race, because it's all over the place. It's just a prediction model. It's exactly what I showed you. It's a ball of numbers, a ball of words, right? That has statistical connections. The formula is the way they organize it, the way they categorize it. And they're saying that it's going to be, AI is kind of a, it may, let's say outthink, and looking at it and developing what it is a for loop. Yes, I could keep for looping and getting closer and closer to an answer. And I could just keep pumping in new information from new contexts and for looping through that back and forth until come up with these crazy answers or off the edge answers. But I'm constantly feeding information, re-looping through my original answer, taking some more context in, re-looping through that, taking some information about physics, taking some information about calculus, taking some information about the Hubble telescope, taking some information about, you know, all types of things, weather, sun, this, that, and I'm constantly looping and looping and looping and looping. And one day I say, you know, after 1 million iterations, give me an answer. It may be a great answer that we've never heard before. Now, I don't necessarily call that, but that may be how the human brain thinks. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, but my point is, I want you guys to understand what's actually going on. So we need to demystify, and all of that, and knowing how it operates. Don't you dare give up your place. You can't do it. You can't give up your place to AI, right? You got to stand your ground in this AI race. You got to stand your ground with it. Don't just give up. Oh man, that sounded damn good, Walter. I give up. Did you hear how that sounded? And it's wrong, right? It could be wrong because your experience and your years of experience of human experience, because they're dealing outcomes for humans, you know what it makes you feel. What you understand how it feels. It doesn't understand feelings per se. You know what I'm saying? How it makes you feel good, how it makes you feel enriched, how it makes you feel, you know, as a champion, how it makes you feel bad. You understand the context, what's winning, what's losing, who you're competing against, who you're not competing against. All of that's the conscious, you know, persona that we have as humans. It doesn't know that. It can just take information and hopefully one of your goals, hey, I want you to do this, right? You gave it the goal, right? You said who you are, and then it just gave you an answer. But all of the other things that go on the outside, other than the equal sign on the calculator or the submit sign on the prompt, right? That's the only power that it's getting, the emission of the information. I just showed you a couple examples of how I kind of go and challenge it a lot of times, you know, just to see, right? How good is this thing? And the more you work with, the more you come closer and closer to these conclusions that AI is going to become a commodity item of, they're going to be this, you know, these models that can emit information and gather information and give it out, but also use it as the index or knowledge. So it is very good at taking information that is trained on worldwide and putting it in a fashion that you and your organization can actually take advantage of. Okay. And I think I'm getting close to the end. And I want to leave a little bit of time, Lawrence, to open up for some questions. Lawrence? I think Lawrence might have stepped away. I think it is.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yes, we're scheduled for the 30 at 30.
That, that's right. That's right.
Okay, 18:30. Okay. I'm on military time, so it's 18 coming on 18:30 to me, but you guys are California time, so I'm not sure on your guys' time. All right. So questions. Now I hope we
Is it
went in.
appropriate?
Yes.
Is it appropriate to create a hostile work environment for your agents like you just?
That is not appropriate.
This is Sean, man. I'm just bugging you.
Yeah, I did create a hostile environment. I was here bugging with the AI. I see some people cringing, like, what is that guy Walter doing? He's gonna end us all. Right. Let me say, I apologize.
Hey, Walter, I think
Yeah.
Sean was talking a little bit about, I think in Gemini is called gems, but some of these setups where you can kind of set an agent with some context already, so you don't have to load the context in. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yes. So for example, you know, these gems, with some places they call them projects, right? Where you're actually creating a context. You know, let's say it's CSPG, right? It's called CSPG. You are a master in CSPG regulations, right? So that's all. I'm just gonna be real simple. Right? So I have that there. So now I can test it right now. I can say, you know, give me um, the most important. Listen, I mean, how about this? Let's say explain it. how about I back up and say, explain IM 130. IM 138, yeah. That's okay, here we go. Cis random, often referred to as simple as IM 130, is a critical policy issued in the US. So now it knows all that stuff. So it's admitting that. So now we basically created a master in CSBG regulations. Now I can ask it things about that, right? And I can get more advanced. I can say, hey, you're in CSBG, you're in this program, you're in that. And then you can post this and then start asking it things, right? You know, teach me this, teach me that. So what did we do here? We just want this context to exist permanently. So I don't have to every time come in here and do another context. I want to put all my context and rules together, you know, right here. I don't want to start a chat. I'm just going to leave it alone. So now I can just come over here to my CSBG gem master and then just, it already knows CSBG, right? But what I could have done was attach to it other items that I, know about. I don't know how they're edited. Like, let's say when I created it, let's say we're doing, create a gem. Explore gem. Where's my new gem? I thought I had a new gem button on here. Explore gems. Oh, there's something already in there. Oh, that's good. We just started there. So here's one that's a career guide. So what have they done? They just basically preloaded this with actual information, pre-information, and/or documents that you can attach. I use ChatGPT most, but all of them have the same kind. The idea is you create context, and Google calls it gems. OpenAI calls theirs projects. Claude, I believe, calls theirs projects. They may call it something else. So the short answer to that question was that's the quick crash course on using gems, but it basically is a context. Because now when you ask it questions about CSBG, it's expecting CSBG types of questions. I don't want to come in here and ask it about Lahi, even though it would answer, it'd be better answers about CSBG because I said it's a master in CSBG. It'd be great if I uploaded some other, documents and things like that to actually even make it smarter, or current or recent documents, or my strategic plan, or my mission statement, or my this, or my that. And then you go to asking those questions. You basically can create your own expert on demand for anything. Here's my on-demand expert, right? On demand, you can have that educational, create me a quiz, a test on, create me a study guide. On IM 138. Okay, same thing. Just hit my equal sign, right? And then it's going to go out and do it. It's going to give me a study guide, core principles of IM 130, scope, applicability, thematic groups, da 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 blah 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 blah. You get what I'm saying? We just hit the equal sign. Yeah, it's there, right? So we get. See, this is the power, the other superpower of AI, and you really got to embrace it and utilize it for that. Okay. Any other questions? I'm not rushing off because I know you guys will rush off. Hey, it's Walter's time. We're clicking off. Remember, the next time we're gonna go through the PowerPoints, and I love going live. We're gonna actually use some tools that we actually use, like we have AI command centers where you actually can deploy at your organization. And I really want to cover that too for our next session, where you actually go in. And I need to prep it up so I can get you guys some kind of like login types of things. So I'm gonna ask you guys to submit your emails between now and the next session. And you'll get a email that's saying, hey, here's your login. So prior to that, we can kind of pre-set up your logins for you guys can go in, and we're gonna have a set up a AI command center where you can kind of see how these things kind of work, right? So it'll be kind of, think about the gems that we have, but how you do it in an organizational level. Because this is just me, right? How about I want my whole organization to have a LIHEAP expert, a CSBG expert, a this expert, grant writer, And this is how we use it in a lot of the organizations here in Georgia. And I want you, to demonstrate that to you. And I'm going to go over how you can use it for voice chat. We're going to take some phone calls through the AI, how you can use it for voice systems and things like that. So there are a lot of other things, nifty things that, Lawrence wanted me to bring some things that you guys could take home with. not just necessarily do the PowerPoint, because guess what? You could come in here and say, create me a PowerPoint, right? You could say, create me a PowerPoint. So, I might just get, hey, you guys, all right, make your own power. We're getting ready to start the class. Make your own PowerPoints. Get your PowerPoints. All right, now we're gonna go through the PowerPoints. Right, there's a video. Here's your formal name. Slide 3, slide 4. So information in this fashion is instant. You guys, even the presentation of it is instant. But what it can't do is bring the expertise, like me talking to you guys, walking through it, teasing with the AI, doing, looking inside the brain, giving these other contextual things, realistic cases, non-realistic cases. It can't bring that experience to the table. And that's the main thing that I want you guys, but we need to demystify, because I feel everyone gives up. They get in AI and say, oh, I give up. It's better, which is way off the mark of being true. Okay. It's better at now. It is better at producing content now, because I'm a terrible writer, but no longer, right? I'm 4X. I'm Walter, the great writer. Okay. All right. Any other questions for the day? I know we're kind of running out of time. I know you guys got to get out of the way of tsunami, and I pray that you guys are okay. Just be careful. I think they said there's a warning, and I just saw it in the middle of the night, so I don't know. Not trying to scare everyone, but I did say something about tell everybody to get out. I was like, get out? What does that mean? And it said something about a tsunami in Russia, in Russia, or earthquake and things like that. So my prayers with you guys, if that is the case. But stay safe. So next time, so we can do our AI. All right. With that, Lawrence, I'm officially done.
All right. Hey, thank you, Walter. I did drop a link to a quick survey. We just do an NPS survey. It's one question.
Okay.
So if you can give us some feedback, we'd greatly appreciate it. And folks, we'd love to see you at the next session. Looking forward to this whole agency-wide approach, Walter. I'm anxious for it, man.
Yes.
These these little bits here, we've been using a lot on a regular basis, just to, like you said, teach us stuff. And what you say about context is so important. So thank you for that today.
And be prepared for the white papers I'm going to send over to Lawrence. Lawrence, I think I may have been the context gateway theory. Anyways, I'll send it over to you. You can send that out to the to everyone.
Yeah, you bet. We'll load all the documents that Walter sends us with the recording when we send that out to folks. So look forward to that. And Walter, we'll see you in a week, man.
All right, in a week, next week. I got that on the calendar. All right.
Very good. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Have a nice. Bye-bye.